excited to have everyone here. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 2022 CEO panel, where we'll soon find out that success doesn't travel a straight path. My name is Aaron Smoot, Program Coordinator of the LEAD Summer Internship Program, and I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator and panelists. After the intro and moderator-led questions conclude, there will be a time for interns and the audience to place questions into the chat box. Next, our moderator today is our very own Cafe Group President, Mrs. Liz Thompson. The Cafe Group is focused on college access, success, career readiness, and attainment. Liz is deeply engaged in the nonprofit community and passionate about youth development and education. She grew up in Chicago's Cabrini Green Housing Development and credits her parents and strong community for shaping her values and vision. When others wonder how she somehow beat the odds as a product of Cabrini, Liz firmly declares that her success is because of where she came from, not in spite of it. After receiving an electrical engineering degree from Purdue University, she began working with nonprofits in 1993 and has been at it ever since. In addition to her commitment to serving students, professionals, and communities, Liz is the co-founder with her husband, Don Thompson, of Cleveland Avenue, LLC, a food and beverage-focused venture capital fund. Cleveland Avenue provides financial resources, expertise, and individual support to entrepreneurs as they grow and scale their business. Our first panelist is Jamal Cannon, the executive director and founder of the Bloc. He is the 2009 National Collegiate Boxing Champion and a Teach for America alumni member. He holds a bachelor's degree in social work from the University of Kentucky and a master's degree in education from Arizona State University. In 2016, after building a popular boxing program in his classroom, Cannon combined his love for youth development, boxing, and education to form the Bloc. He has been recognized as a CNN hero, a 4-star Chicagoan by Windy City Live, an economic game changer by the New Covenant Community Development Corporation, profiled as one of the hardest working voices in sports by Chicago Sun-Times, awarded the Rich O'Leary Community Sports Award at Notre Dame University, and is generally considered by the fighters in the Bloc to be the baddest man alive. Most recently, Jamyle was selected as a 2022 1954 Luminary recipient, an initiative of the Cafe Group programming that grants funds to establish Black leaders of nonprofit organizations in the education sector. Thank you, Jamyle, for being here. Next up is Don Thompson. Don is the founder and CEO of Cleveland Avenue and the former president and CEO of McDonald's Corporation. Retiring in 2015 after a 25-year career with the Golden Arches, Don and his wife Liz formed Cleveland Avenue LLC and the Cleveland Avenue Foundation for Education. Bringing together global restaurant expertise, a passion for consumer innovation, and a deep respect for entrepreneurs, Don and the Cleveland Avenue team invest and accelerate emerging restaurant, food, beverage, and technology brands. Always giving back, Thompson received the 2021 Dreamer Award from his alma mater, Purdue University, for his vision for service and impact on the lives of millions of customers and employees across the country throughout his career. Thompson received a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Purdue University and an honorary doctorate in science from Excelsior College. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for being here. We really appreciate it. Finally, Mariana Souto-Manning became Erikson's 5th president in September 2021. Mariana has served as a professor of education at Teachers College, Columbia University, and held additional academic appointments at the University of Iceland and King's College London. Committed to the pursuit of justice in early childhood teaching and teacher education, Mariana's research centers the lives, values, and experiences of intersectionally minoritized people of color. An Afro-Latina, first-generation immigrant, Mariana earned her bachelor's, master's, and PhD at the University of Georgia after having started her higher education journey at DeKalb Community College. Mariana has co-authored 10 books, dozens of book chapters, and over 80 peer-reviewed articles. She has received a number of research awards, including the American Educational Research Association Division K Innovations in Research on Diversity in Teaching Education Award. Thank you, Mariana, for being here. I want to extend a huge thank you to our panelists, to our moderator. And with that, I'll turn it over to Liz Thompson. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Aaron. And I want to extend a huge thank you to our very own Aaron Smoot, who just 2 years ago was sitting in the seat of many of these interns. And so Aaron went from being intern extraordinaire to coordinator of the entire internship program. So Aaron, a big shout out to you as an extraordinary example of what it means to be excellent, what it means to live out your dream, and what it means to follow this path that's not always straight to get to the ultimate destination as a leader. So thank you, Aaron, for showing us how to do it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our what has now become our annual CEO panel for the LEAD Summer Internship Program. I am delighted to have you all here with us, but I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I would love to see your faces. Many times when you have this many participants on, people choose to use a webinar format where you don't necessarily see 50 or 60 little tiny pictures on the screen. And we intentionally fight the urge to go with a webinar format so we can see the 50 or 60 tiny little pictures on the screen, because this is our community. So I want you to take a look at all of the faces here. This is the community of people that support you as interns in the LEAD Summer Internship Program. And no matter where you're joining us from, Lancy, Daniela, we see all of you all on that picture. We see you all. Jared, who is a master for video productionist, and everybody else that's on the screen. This is an incredible community of support. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for how you support our interns. And we thank you for just in general being supportive of what it means to be a leader and how we can help young people follow that path. So now, a housekeeping item. Now that we've all seen your faces, we're going to ask you all to again go off video. We're going to ask our speakers to remain on screen on video. And to make it easy, we're going to ask for all of our audience to go up to the view button in your upper right-hand corner, at least it is on mine, and highlight the speaker view. And that way you can really focus on who's speaking at one time. And for those of you that don't care to see all of the small screens, if you go to any one of the little tiny squares, click on the 3 dots in that screen and go to hide non-video participants. Once you've done all of that, you should really just be looking at a screen with the 4 of us on that will highlight the speakers at any given point in time. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started. So Don, Jamyle, Mariana, I want to ask each of you this question. And these questions that we are talking about today, they won't be for all of you every time, but it's important for our audience to understand, why did you choose your current profession? What got you started on this journey? So let's start, Jamyle, with you.
You know, I wouldn't say that I necessarily chose my current profession. I wanted to do what was best for my community. And I had this lingering feeling from the time that I was a child that the people around me did not expect me to do well because I was Black. And I was living in Kentucky at the time. And they didn't have high expectations of the people who were around me as well. And I had this feeling that I could not put a word to it, but it seemed like the people around us felt that we weren't as smart. But I felt that something profoundly unfair was happening to me and for the folks in my community. And it wasn't until I was able to put a name to that in 2009 when I met a woman and she told me about education inequality and how Black and brown young people were not getting the same level of education as their richer and whiter counterparts. I said I wanted to do something about this, but still, I didn't think that I was going to be leading an organization. To me, leadership is often a burden. And if I could find somebody to follow that was doing the things that I wanted to do, I would jump right in with them. But I kept encountering systems and encountering individuals who were decision makers in systems that I didn't think were committed to making the changes that we needed to make as a community. I felt that the nonprofits were committed to managing poverty, to benefiting from poverty even at times. And I felt that the education system was too rigid in its approach in how we dealt with young people. And in looking for leaders to follow, I had to pinpoint what is it that I need to be doing myself to become the leader for other people, because we're not seeing it in the sectors that I'm looking in. So the route to leadership for me came from a very concerted effort, a very intentional effort to find something to plug into to add to momentum. And when I realized that momentum wasn't taking place, I decided I need to start something myself. On top of that, the kids in our community were demanding that I start this program. I had a small program in my classroom with just some kids boxing and hanging out after class, and the 80 kids from the community just started showing up and saying, we want you to do this, we want to be here. So I knew that there was something that the young people of the community were demanding. I knew that it was something that was beneficial to the young people in the community, so I decided to run full speed into it. So following the demand of the community that was not being met by the existing structures, I decided to step up, to start the Bloc, and to try to impact the community in the most profound way that I could.
Thank you, Jamyle. So you didn't choose leadership, leadership chose you. So coming off of that, Mariana, can you share with us, how did your journey begin in your current profession?
A bit similarly, Liz. I really saw firsthand some of the inequities experienced by people of color, especially Afro-descendants in Brazil, and their lack of access to education. So I grew up in Brazil, and my grandmother was a domestic worker, and she had never had access to schooling. So as a child, I remember teaching her how to draw her name so that she would not have to have the word illiterate stamped across her national ID. And so that experience really profoundly impacted me and led me to my career path in education, to ensure educational access, quality, and equity as realities. Then, as I became a teacher, a professor, a researcher, I realized the problems with having a predominantly white profession of teachers. Research tells us that children, especially Black children, if they have 2 Black teachers by 3rd grade, they're 39% more likely to enroll in college. Behavior issues go down, academic engagement goes up. And in Illinois right now, 72% of teachers are white. It's not that white teachers can't teach children of color, but it's that we need to diversify the teaching force. So that's what really got me to take the position as president of Erikson Institute. Now that we know better, we need to do better by our communities. And we have to have the impact that is going to be answerable to communities and not keep doing things the same way, because things the same way have really excluded so many of our communities and families. So that's a little bit about my choice. My choice has always been guided by the purpose for justice and equity.
I love that. Mariana, you said we need to diversify our teaching force. When I think about, I did not encounter my first Black teacher until I was a sophomore in high school. And she was amazing. And the other teachers up until that point were the most incredible teachers, you know, that in many cases that I've ever encountered. So to your point, it's not that teachers who are white are not great. They're excellent. They're amazing. We love all teachers. And yet we would all benefit from having a more diverse teaching core. So Mr. Thompson, help us understand, how did you choose your current profession?
Well, thanks much, Liz, and Mariana and Jamyle. Following you all, I could probably just say ditto. We could cancel this. My path's a little bit different, though. My first career choice was out of college as an electrical engineer to really go into that profession. And if there was anything that I wanted to do, that one was just to have some, you know, to be able to be a good engineer. I wanted to be able to design some things, create some new opportunities for customers to look at different ways of approaching life. And from that career, I ended up moving over to a totally different career out of electrical engineering at McDonald's. And that was really an opportunity, I thought, to join a company that seemed to really care about its employees and also had global presence. I thought I could grow. And I thought, yeah, maybe I can make some impact. What I do now is very different in that I actually chose this one because rather than desiring to make impact, I knew we could make impact. I knew that if there was an opportunity for more entrepreneurs to be able to be supported, not just financially, but with someone who had a stronger sense of care for them as individuals, those that are creating businesses, that are putting their lives on the line, all of their net worth on the line. I felt like if we could find those gems and people who are doing that and support them in a different way, we could have tremendous impact. Further, I thought that if you could do that with a diverse, very diverse set of leaders, something that the rest of the financial industry has not seen at the level of diversity we have at Cleveland Avenue, that would make a statement. And lastly, I knew that it was also a vehicle to give more money into the hands of Black and brown entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. Because if it's coming through an organization and a group that has a stronger sensitivity to the genius that's inherent in those people, then I knew that we could be a conduit for that. So this one, we kind of, this last one, I like to say, I chose as a life mission, whereas some of the others I chose to be able to make impact and show that I was going to be able to help that organization move forward. And so, kind of to Jamyle's point, the first ones, I don't know if I chose a career as much as what I was choosing was an occupation in terms of place that I could go and I felt good about. This last one, this is about impact, and this is about changing the world firsthand.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be on this journey with you. So, Mariana, I'm going to come to you. I don't know if you started out with a desire to be CEO of Erikson Institute, an unbelievably impactful organization. If you did start out to be CEO of an organization when you started your career, tell us what you plan to do in order to get there. And if you didn't start out with the intent to be CEO, at what point did you realize, I think this is my path?
Wow, that's a great question. So I did not set out to be a CEO or president. I have always been a teacher and an early childhood teacher. But I realized that my teaching and my work was impacting those that I taught, but there were large-scale systemic inequities that I was not addressing. So initially, when I left the early childhood classroom, where I had the privilege to teach toddlers to second grade students, I became a teacher educator. I figured the idea is that if I could impact 2 teachers a year, that would be twice as many classrooms than my own classroom. And so I would have greater impact. And so as I kept experiencing barriers, I simply couldn't accept and acquiesce to these inequitable realities and systems that keep denying our children their brilliance, that don't allow them to shine to their full potential. So that's when I realized that I needed to be a CEO, a president, and accepted the position as president of Erikson Institute, which is a premier graduate school in child development, early childhood education, and social work in Chicago, really to ensure that we are doing the work, that our classrooms are ready to make sure that every child's brilliance is able to shine, and that we are doing right by all of our communities.
That's fantastic. So you didn't set out to be CEO, but here you are. Let me ask you a follow-up to that, Mariana. Is there something about being CEO that you would say to our audience right now? Wow, I never thought as CEO I would do this. Is there something that is most surprising to you about sitting in this role?
I think that the most surprising thing has been having been on the other side and having been told so many times, well, we can't do this. And asking why. As CEO, instead of asking why, I can actually make proposals and make things happen. So a couple of examples of that is, for example, Erikson is right now developing the first triple certification program in the state that's going to certify teachers in early childhood, special education, and either bilingual or ESL, because children come home and we need to be able to be ready to support them and to make sure that they are succeeding, that they are experiencing joy and learning. And that was something that to date does not exist in Illinois. So it was something that I was able to go to Carmen Ayala and propose and get approval. The other thing was really scholarships for teachers of color. We know that most Nordic countries, they pay for teacher education programs and they pay a decent salary to teachers. So I know that we have a long way to go, but in the meantime, I've been fundraising for scholarships for Black and Brown teachers who commit to teaching in underserved and underinvested communities like North Lawndale, Bronzeville, and many other communities in the Chicagoland area. So that is to say, I think that it allowed me to not only imagine possible futures, but take steps toward realizing those futures. And in that way, it's been amazing.
Don, I'm going to pivot over to you. Did you set out to be a CEO? And if not, when did you realize, yeah, maybe this is my path forward?
It is a great question. You know, I don't know how many people actually set out to be CEOs. I most certainly did not. I wanted to be able to have, as I mentioned earlier, impact. I wanted my, you know, as Hamilton would say, I wanted to be in the room where it happens. I wanted to be able to have my voice heard. I wanted to have my voice respected for the value it brought, but I didn't set out to be a CEO. I think that as things evolved, as the jobs changed, as career progressed and you get new positions, I started to gain a confidence that said, you know, I think I can do just about any job in a company, but I would have to learn about the role, maybe when I'm in it, or maybe even before I get to it. So there was a confidence that did begin to arise. And I think that confidence really helped me to perform better in the roles that I was in, and ultimately, you know, to be named the CEO of McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. Jamyle, let me switch topics here as I come to you. So a large number of the young people in our audience are part of the LEAD Summer Internship Program. And the research tells us how important the internships are in order to secure that first really significant job out of college. And used to be back in the day when I was in college, as my kids would say, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. But back when I was in college, having an internship was a nice to have, and it sort of moved us up to the top of the pack. But nowadays, internships are like the ground floor. You have to have an internship, and there are other things that you need to do to move to the top of the pack. Did you have an internship when you were in school? And if so, what do you think is the ultimate value of having an internship?
You know, that's something that I hadn't thought about in a while, but the internships that I had in college, I think really changed the trajectory of my life. I was able to work with two women in two different internships, one at the Children's Law Center of Kentucky. And you hear the Children's Law Center of Kentucky, you think like they've got a ton of resources and they're out there making it happen. They probably got an office in a tower somewhere. I showed up to my first day of the internship, and they have this single room office between a tire shop and a Wendy's. And this is where all the work is getting done. And I worked under Rebecca DiLoretto, who was the lead litigation attorney. And she did everything. She would argue Supreme Court cases. She would go to special education meetings. She put me in real leadership positions where I had to go and perform. One of the first cases I worked on was a young person who had been charged with murder, and I had to go to the prison and do interviews and intakes. And it really impressed upon me the importance of action, the importance of just getting started. The way, you know, she didn't have a team, but you would have thought she had a 20, 30 person team, the way that she woke up and did the job every single day. And the system itself wasn't necessarily supportive of her getting the job done, but she showed up every day and she did it anyway. Moved to my second internship within the court system. The Friends of the Court was where I worked. And again, Friends of the Court is plural, but there was one person in that office, and she advised on all domestic violence and child abuse cases for the court. She advised people, judges who did not want to be advised, who thought that they knew enough to get the job done, but she still showed up every single day, put in the work, would run into a system and figure out how to change the system to work towards the ultimate goal of our mission. So I think the real value of an internship for me is seeing what it takes to get the job done so that you can replicate it in your own life. I would not be where I am today, and I would not have the work ethic and really the belief that I can get things done had I not worked with those two women who were continually running into a system and finding ways to get over it, get through it, knock it down, do whatever they had to do.
Jamyle, you know what I love about what you just said? Many, many things. Two things stand out. One, you called these women by name. And somebody once told me the sweetest sound you can ever hear is the sound of your name. So as we are, reflecting on experiences for our young people in the audience, remember y'all, use people's names to call out when you've had a good experience, because that means something to them, whether they're present or not, especially in this world where connections are just, one click away. And the other thing you said was, we sometimes have preconceived notions about things. So friends of the court was really friend of the court. And yet you learned so much from that friend of the court that has driven who you are today. So thank you for sharing that, Jamyle. Don, I want to ask you a similar question. What do you think? I know you had some experiences as an intern. What are the most valuable things that our students should be thinking about and taking away from these summer experiences they have?
Yeah. Wow, these are some great questions. I think one of the first things is don't underestimate the impact that you can have as an intern. Many times in internships, people tend to believe, well, I'm here, but it's only for the summer, or they're not going to give me any good thing to do. I mean, I'll be shuffling papers or filing, or you all are so much stronger than that. Don't hesitate to understand, get to learn more about the business that you're working in, the organization, just to Jamyle's point about him going into prison systems and understanding and beginning to learn and move his way around the system to be able to help people. The same thing goes for anyone that's an intern right now. You're in companies and organizations that, you came into and you are now learning. Don't view yourself as a foreigner, view yourself as part of the team. And if you do that, seek out things that you want to learn during this experience as well. So if you're doing, things in area A, but you see something in area B and you're excited about it, see if you can get some learning over in that area as well. So make sure that you're trying to contribute, not just to be there. The other thing that I'd offer is, make sure you begin to understand what the value of expertise is, because you're working with different people, and some of those people are really, really strong in certain areas. And you'll begin to fashion even the way you want to be relatively, you know what, I'd like to know more about that. Oh, wow, I'd like to be able to behave in that way. You know what, that was a great idea. I'd like to be able to offer things like that. You'll also learn things you don't want to do. I heard him say this, that's not something I would ever do. I wouldn't want to lead that way. Don't take it as good or bad, just take it as our learning. So from my perspective as an intern, one of the biggest things you can get is not the fact of saying you were an intern, it's the fact of saying what you learned as an intern. And that to me are two totally different things, but it will also make your experience a lot more satisfying across any and all internships that you have.
Absolutely. Plus 100 to that, as Maya said in the chat box. Love that. And I just want to reiterate how our interns are killing the game over at the Cafe Group in Cleveland Avenue. So they are definitely doing what both of you have said. Mariana, let's talk a little bit about the value of mentorship. I think all of us would say we have had somebody along the way. In fact, Jamyle already talked about a couple of folks that have been helpful to him along his journey. Young people often ask, hey, what about mentorship? Do I ask somebody to be my mentor? Should I wait for them to offer to be my mentor? Let me ask you, did you have a mentor that has been particularly helpful to you? And if so, how did that relationship come about?
I've had many, and I'm only here because of them. Mentorship, or sometimes as I like to call mentorship, because many of my mentors are women, Black women, has been essential to me. In fact, it still is. Back when I first started, I became part of a program for educators of color, cultivating new voices among scholars of color. And I know today that the only reason that I remained in the profession was because of my femtor, Celia Ganishi, and my femtor, Carol Lee, who is a co-founder of the Betty Shabazz School here in Chicago. It's really, it was a privilege accessing the program. I applied for that program. I didn't come from a family that had connections and that could make a call and ask someone for an internship or for mentorship. It wasn't easy to find, but it was life-giving. And I thought, how is it that all of these people have mentors and how do they get them? And I had to realize that for some people, it came with the cultural wealth of their families. But for me, I had to put myself out there. And one of the things that I didn't realize is that there were elders that would hold and support me, such as Mama Carol, such as Siri Ganishi. But also there were mentors and femtors who would cultivate my potential that were peer mentors. Like one of my peer mentors here, who is in the call today, is Benelli Alvarez, who's an assistant principal in New York City. I see Fabienne Doucet. And those are amazing women who I think that we benefit from peer mentorship. So it's really important to not only cultivate and sustain mentorship throughout the course of a career, but also to recognize that there is more expertise distributed than in any one person. So many times I don't have one mentor or one femtor, but I have a community, a village, right? As you know, Liz, and you're included in that, most recently I've been blessed to be held and supported by Black women CEOs in Chicago, from Naila Nasir, from Spencer, Nicole Robinson from YWCA, you, Liz, Michelle Collins, Shelby, Perry, so many more. So it's been a gift. So my advice for finding a mentor or femtor is find several. I know that I need support in multiple areas, so multiple mentors or femtors are needed. And this is rooted in the belief that no matter how amazing a person is, as a person who grew up valuing community, that community sustains us. It's a collective effort. It's also collective pride. So I find that most of the best mentoring or femtoring is reciprocal. It's marked by humility on both sides, the understanding and the enactment that no one knows it all and no one is ignorant of everything, no matter how schooled or how much access they've had. So I've had mentors who did not go to school. And I have mentors who, like me, have PhDs. And I think that sometimes we embrace a little bit of an elitist view of mentors. One of my most powerful mentors has been my grandmother, who did not know how to read or write, but who always believed in me. So I think that part of it is also sourcing and recognizing the human resources that exist around us and not diminish the power of that expertise.
Ooh, you see this right here? That's called dropping the mic on that right there. Just had to do it. Sorry. Yeah. So my takeaway, I'm going to start calling my people femtors. I didn't even realize the word mentor. I'm sure, I don't know what the origins are of the word, but it is mentor. So now I'm going to acknowledge my femtors as well as my mentors. So thank you for that, Mariana. Jamyle, I want to ask you the same thing. Talk to us a little bit about the value, right, Frederick? So many nuggets we're getting and they're all fire. Talk to us, Jamyle, a little bit about the mentors in your life and how did they come about? Did you seek them out? Did they seek you out? How did it all go down?
You know, I have some people who I would consider traditional mentors, but I also think about every situation as, what can I be learning from this individual? And I'm constantly trying to pick up on what is it that this individual is doing that I could bring more into my own life as well. Even on this call, I'm thinking of Mariana and how she weaves in her personal stories. She weaves in her personal experience and everything that says when I'm with you, Liz, I think about how you're intentional about bringing people together and allowing people to share stories and giving people platforms, and also giving like the praise that you give people. Like everybody feels great when they're around you. I think I should be doing more of that. Don and his level of authenticity. Another thing that I think about when it comes to Don is he realized that he came to a point in his life where he decided it was time to pivot, and he's been open about the thought processes that went into that, and realizing that his life is going to take on a different meaning than it had in the past. I think Aaron and I are in a similar place in our lives, believe it or not, because we're in this like kind of in between moment. He's no longer the intern, but he's not quite to where he's going to be yet, and we're both navigating similar spaces in that sense. I see Will's on the call as well. Will and his level of authenticity and just like straightforwardness that he brings to every situation. I look at all of those things, and I'm always whenever I'm in a situation, I know that I can be learning from people, whether it's somebody across the street who's just navigating the community or someone in an academic setting. I want to be a sponge and find the best of people that I can also be and try to live that out in myself as well.
Jamyle, I actually can see on your face when someone is talking and you are absorbing, you get this look on your face like, yep. And you do it almost every time someone is speaking. You are literally absorbing as they're talking. And I love watching you because I can see it in action. Okay, I may be having more fun than anybody else right now, so I just want to put that out there. All right, Mr. Thompson, let's go over to you. One of the questions we got last year that I wanted to be sure we brought forward to this year was, how do you remain authentic? I think anybody that knows you, or even people that meet you for the first time, if someone said, how would you describe Don Thompson? Authentic would be one of the words they would use to describe you. And yet you have been you want to talk about the room where it happens. You've been in some of the most unbelievable rooms where all kinds of things happen. And yet you are always authentically Don Thompson. How do you manage to do that? I know some of that comes with years and with experience, but for the young people that are just starting off, what is the key to that authenticity that you carry around with you at all times?
I guess it kind of happened over the years a little bit, but one of the things that I began to realize is that my background is too strong to leave it at home. And so when you are in some of the situations, most of the stuff that I really learned about how to behave in a boardroom and what moves to make and how I assess the crowd and how I understood, how I was going to go about getting this plan across are things I learned in the neighborhood growing up. Most of those things, who's got your back, who doesn't have your back. I could look at a person's face and see, okay, you're not hitting it well. Okay, how do I want to come back at this? The competitive nature that I had, that was from the neighborhood and how I grew up. So I think a lot of the things in terms of who you are from an authenticity perspective are the things that you brought with you from many earlier days in your life. And as long as you value it, then when you come into a room, it won't be devalued. The other aspect of it, I do believe is really, really important, is part of being authentic is maintaining you. And sometimes we get into certain circles and we think, wow, if I'm going to be effective in this circle, I've got to be like everybody else in this circle. Well, once you decide you're going to do that, you lose all differentiation of who you are. You lose your authenticity, but you also lose yourself. And once you lose yourself, you lose the ability to navigate. And once you can't navigate, you just lost. You don't know where you are. But if you always understand who you are and where you've come from, and you bring that to the table, if you don't change the way you speak, but you increase the way that you're able to master vocabulary, that's still being authentic. If you don't tell somebody, oh yeah, no, I never eat that. knowing that you do because that's part of your background, then you're losing your authenticity. So I think just being able to be who you are, how you are, where you are, is the most important thing anybody can do. It is what I would view as the biggest aspect of integrity. Most people think of integrity and they think about having integrity relative to other people. The first individual you need to have an extreme level of integrity with is yourself. And if you can do that and be true to who you are, then people will sense that, they'll feel that, and they too will strive to have a higher level of self-integrity as well. So I just think that when you lose it, I hate to see people that are not authentic because I don't have as much value for them. I want to know who you are really deeply. And that brings a lot of value.
Another drop the microphone moment. Fire, pure fire. My background is too strong to leave at home. Pure fire. Thank you for that. Amen to that, as our brother Jordan Brown has put into the chat box. Mariana, I want to hear from you about this. How do you manage to be authentic? Because I can tell you that is absolutely what beats you into the room is your authenticity. I mean, you are so authentic, it beats you into every room that you come in. How do you manage to do that?
It hasn't been easy, actually. It didn't matter where I was. I often received messages that I didn't belong. You know, it was as if I was always being held to a white American English speaking monolingual standard or norm. And that I was always encouraged to perform according to that norm. Looking back, of course, this is not surprising. As the great Toni Morrison reminded us, American means white, everyone else is hyphenated, right? So I was encouraged to assimilate and to self-inflict some processes of erasure. And I'm talking about that because it is so important for us to realize that even as we bring home and authenticity into the room, it doesn't mean that everyone will affirm us. And those processes that sometimes I undertook were harmful. So I have to admit that in yearning to belong and to be seen as worthy in my position to fit in, I tried to fit in. And one example of how I did that was that I straightened my hair to look professional for 20 years. So it took me a little bit of time to realize that I could never be a copy of someone else, that I could never fit into a mode that was made to distort, to harm, and to traumatize me. I had to be, and I chose to be authentic to my identity. But even in being authentic, I still experience discrimination. People seldom assume that I'm president. They often assume that I'm an administrative assistant, that I'm the help. I have chosen to be authentic and to take these moments as educative, but it's not always easy, right? I know the power and the potential of being a living, embodied counter story to the myth that Toni Morrison wrote about Americans being white. I see myself as proof that Black women, that Afro-Latinas are brilliant, powerful, and can and should shine. But it doesn't mean that society always sees authenticity as desirable. So I want to share that because in a lot of ways, yes, we want to be authentic, but being authentic because we take up space and because we display our power and possibility makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And that means that they won't always be kind or nice. So again, back to the mentoring, find your people so that you are able to really ensure that you are being affirmed, even when you can be authentic and not necessarily be affirmed by those who are potentially in the meeting room.
Woo. Okay, I'm going to give a couple snaps to what Jen Wander said. I think we need to craft some swag with that quote. Being American means being white because everybody else is hyphenated. I never really thought about it like that. And yet, not to have any shade thrown on anyone, but that just is kind of a fact, isn't it? I never really thought about it like that. Thank you, Jamyle. I don't know if you want to add to this because all of this has been so fire. I figure you probably want to get in on this one.
Just a little bit. So Jackie Robinson died at 50 years old of a heart attack. He was one of the most athletic people to walk this earth. He was always in shape, watched his diet, and he died of a massive heart attack in his 50s. It's because he had to hold in so much of himself in order to be in the rooms that he was in. And recognizing that fact made me realize I'm not going to make it. If I'm doing anything but being myself, I'm not going to make it. My aunt told me, don't show anything that you can't keep up. So if I can't maintain it, I'm not going to show it. And that's been important to me from the very start. And just the importance of finding your people, because you're going to attract people who love you for who you are. I am not going to be a better rich white man than a rich white man. It's just not going to happen. But I can be me to the fullest that I can be me. And that's going to attract people who are looking for me. And I can't show you anything that I'm not going to maintain.
I love that, Jamyle. Jamyle, what you just said reminds me of a quote that my dad would say to my brother all the time. When my brother would come home from the Naval Academy in his beautiful dress white uniform, having been elected president of his class, the first Black man to be elected president of a class at the Naval Academy, he would come home with his chest puffed out, like, look at me. And my father would look at him and say, you may know more than I know, but you don't know what I know. And so for everybody in this audience, you are valuable because nobody else knows what you know. And so being authentically you means you step into a room knowing things that no one else will ever know because they ain't you. So, all right, let's move on because we got to get to questions because I know it's going to be fire. Quickly, what one piece of advice would you give to your 18, 19, 20-year-old self? If you could look back and talk to you all those years ago, for some of y'all, it's a few more years than others of y'all, but if you could look back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what one piece of advice would you give them? Let's see. Jamyle, you probably have the fewest years to look back, so I'm going to ask you to kick us off.
I'd say believe in yourself. There's a ton out there that does not want you to believe in yourself, but when you truly believe, you're going to act like it, you're going to think like it, you're going to talk like it. And over the years, I watched people lose that belief in themselves, and they've stopped acting like it, they stopped talking like it, and people have scattered to get away from them. If you got on an airplane and the pilot said, welcome to our flight to LA, we might make it past the Rockies, you're not going to stay on that plane for very long because people do not want to go on trips with people who are unsure that they're going to make it to their destination. So you need to believe in yourself. You need to act like it. You need to speak like it. You need to wake up every day and behave that way. And in moments where I don't necessarily know the next step, I know that I can figure it out. And I ask myself, what would I do today? What would I do right now if I knew that I could succeed? And I go and do that thing.
I love that. What would I do if I knew right now I would succeed? That's a nugget to live by for sure. Mariana, what do you say?
Well, I'd say don't try to fit in. Don't doubt yourself. When people try to say that you're not brilliant, it's actually because your brightness is blinding them. Find your purpose, find your people, stay true to who you are, and you will get far.
Yes, yes, yes. When they say you're not brilliant, they just blind from all of your brightness that you have dropped on them. Oh my gosh. Don, what you got?
I would just say, make sure that you understand and believe that the doors of opportunity are super wide open. And by that, I mean, there is nothing that you really cannot do. And oftentimes, as particularly with some of us, if we grew up, I grew up in a neighborhood, and sometimes we'd say, man, look at so-and-so, look what they could do, look what this. The more I realize now, and I would tell myself back then, you know that you can do anything, so pick the anything that you want to do. And if you got a few of them, pick a few of them, go down some different paths, but don't limit and lock yourself in because you think, I don't think I could do it. You can do anything. If I could grow up in a neighborhood and become CEO of McDonald's and run a $1 billion venture capital company and get married to the woman of my dreams and have 2 beautiful kids and all the stuff that I used to think was reserved for other people, anybody, we are strong in terms of our dreams. We're not always as strong in pursuing them. And so we just got open, let the door swing open wide and go after it. Don't limit yourself.
I sure am glad we are recording this because there are too many nuggets. I'm trying to keep track and I've lost track at this point. There's just too much. So I'm going to ask Aaron. Aaron, why don't you come join us on the screen now and let us know, are there any questions that have popped up to you in the chat box?
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you, Liz, for moderating. This has been such a fantastic conversation. You all, I know in the chat, people have been talking about all the nuggets that have been shared through this. And I hope you know I'm typing away as fast as I can. So I'm also glad it's being recorded, Liz. As of now, I don't see any questions in the chat, but with that being said, I'll open it up to anybody that would like to come off mute and ask a question to our panelists. Please feel free to do so. So opening up to the floor now. I'm not going to cold call, but I might volunteer a few others if that doesn't happen. So waiting for any hands. I saw Kayla first.
So what advice would you give to us as young people for like remaining prepared and equipped, even though we don't know like what new opportunities are going to present themselves to us?
Let's give that to Jamyle.
That's a great question. I studied social work and became a teacher and then started a nonprofit. So there've been a lot of pivots in my life that I've had to navigate. And I think really what prepared me for that was taking every role that I found myself in as seriously as I possibly could and learning as much as the truth is, especially when it comes to in terms of leadership, the same sets of skills are going to be needed for just about everything that you do in terms of like working with other people, knowing, having strong judgment. You're building up those skills as you go, and they'll be able to be applied to any sector that you move into, and you'll learn the specific knowledge that you need in that time frame. As long as you are a continual learner, and you're always bettering yourself in whatever role that it is, you'll be able to apply the knowledge that you're learning to the next phase. Because studying social work should not lead me to run a nonprofit that I'm running specifically. But I was able to take in the knowledge that I needed, apply my baseline skills, and then gain a specific knowledge in every new sector that I moved into.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamyle, for that response. And thank you, Kayla, for that question. I'll open it up again if there are any other questions. I believe I saw Maya's hand up.
Yes, it was. I was taking my notes in the chat as you called on me. I think it might actually be a nice dovetail to Kayla's question, which is, I think for a lot of young people, we are so focused on the destination of where you all are now. How do we continue to just have grace with ourselves and maybe be in the moment that we are currently in without, almost giving ourselves the worry of how do we get to where you all are, and just really be in the moment of where we are right now? Any thoughts or advice there?
Love that question, Maya. Mariana, what would you say to that?
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Maya. I would say that one of the things that we tend to do is not to engage in self-care. And I think that I don't mean the kind of individual self-care, the kind of capitalistic self-care. I mean Afrocentric self-care that's community lifting, that is feeding your soul. And so it's really important for us to focus not only on the professional journey, but the personal journey. We know that Black women are more likely to have chronic illnesses, that Black men are more likely to die early. And that has to do a lot with not only the social, but the emotional, the psychological well-being. So I think a lot of times we sacrifice that in favor of professional academics, when in reality, one should not exclude the other. It should really go hand in hand. And if it doesn't go hand in hand, then we are not necessarily setting the best example. I often say that, and maybe it's because I traveled a lot, that I live by airplane philosophy, which is always put the oxygen mask on yourself before helping any others. And I think that with mentees and with mentees, I have really tried to not run myself on empty, because that doesn't set up an example that actually repels people from opportunities and from taking on leadership roles. It serves as a barrier. So really thinking about, how am I going to find joy? How am I going to find time for joy? How am I going to be in community with my people, the people who have my back? And how am I going to attend to my social well-being, my emotional well-being, my psychological well-being, as well as my physical well-being? Because a lot of times we only focus on physical. And if we can do that, then we can focus on professional advancement throughout. Now, I will say on a daily basis, what I do is when I go to sleep and I put my head on the pillow, I always think, what is it that I did well today so that I can remember to do it again? And what is it that I need to try better tomorrow in order to remain true to my purpose, to the mission, to the work that I'm doing? And so I think that it's not about arriving at a destination. I think all of us are always becoming. And if that becomes part of our routine, then we're able to engage in lifelong learning that's purpose-driven.
Thank you.
Love that.
Thanks.
Such great advice. Thank you, Mariana. I believe we probably have time for one more question. And I saw Kenneth's hand up first, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Kenny.
Okay, thank you. Wait, can you guys hear me?
Yep,
Fine.
hear you loud and
All
clear.
right. Okay, so my question is, say like your community or like has like a problem and you want to try to solve it. I would say, what's the best advice you can give a young person trying to solve a problem in their community in regards to like the process on how to do that? Like just a skeleton of a process of how to do that.
Well, Jamyle raised his hand on that. What do you say, Jamyle? Come off of mute first, Jamyle.
Sorry, thank you. I think people often overthink what it is that they need to do to solve a problem. I think you need to start at the most basic level with the people that you're trying to solve that problem with and ask, what can we do about this? I spoke to a nonprofit leader who said, I want to raise, $250,000 before I do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, you need to walk down the streets and you need to talk to the person who's impacted by this problem, and you need to see how you can help that person. I think we often think we need to go straight to a macro level solution when we're trying to solve people for individuals. We're trying to solve problems for individuals who are in our community. So I think it's really important to like, what is the thing that I can do tomorrow that might just cost $20 that I can go and do to support someone that's in my community? And then how can I do more of that to make a broader impact? And you'll work your way to a macro level solution by starting with the individual, starting at the grassroots level, starting on the ground and working your way up from there.
Thank you.
You're on mute now, Liz.
Now I'm on mute. I said I wanted to make a comment about what you just said. I remember when our son had his very first internship, and the very first check he got, he said, I somehow feel like I need to do something with this. It was a couple $100. And, he said, I just feel like I need to do something with this. And that young brother went to McDonald's, bought a bunch of hamburgers, and went and handed out hamburgers to this group of homeless people he would see every day as he walked back and forth to work. And it reminds me of what you said, Jamyle, of the starfish story. You walk along a beach and you see 1,000 starfish and you figure there's no way that I can be helpful to all of these starfish, me one person at a time. And yet if you pick one up and throw it back into the water, you had impact on that one. And so if we can go about our lives and have impact on just one person every day, just one person every day, and all of us did that, we would be living in a different world today. And so, Aaron, we're going to turn it over to you to close us out. Thanks, everybody.
Wow, thank you all so much. I don't know how I can follow that up, Liz, but again, a huge thank you to first our audience for being here, taking the time to chat with us and listen a little bit. Secondly, to our amazing panelists, thank you all so much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedules to be here with us today. It's been a joy to listen to you and to really get more wisdom and information down from you all. Really, really excited to continue this going further with the internship program and to instill all those lessons that you've shared. So thank you all for coming. We will be sending out a wonderful survey in the next couple of minutes to help us on our data collection feedback surveys as well. So look out for those, and thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, Mariana, Jamyle, Don. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone.
My
Okay.
pleasure. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Ann.